Seth Fogle, Vice President of Sales at OneVision.ai, is going to be chatting with us about gaining critical mass and fast tracking sales. Seth, how's it going today?
Good, man. Can you hear me okay?
I sure can. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
No, thanks. Thanks a lot.
I will be stepping back here. I'll let you take over the mic, and I'll kind of check in with you with 5 or 10 minutes left to see if there's any questions. If you want to leave it open for
Okay.
Q&A.
Yeah, I mean, just, because you're a visual learner, you probably are not going to like my limited slides, just a heads up. Hey, everybody. I wanted to, as Avian mentioned, my name is Seth Fogle. I was hoping to just have a discussion on thoughts on how to gain critical mass or more or less fast track your sales. Again, I'm with a company called OneVision.ai, which is a decision science platform. What it basically does is it pulls in all of your data points for your marketing assets and gives you a linear interpretation of what those assets are doing when it comes to conversion. Not only are they doing from your search or from your SEO or your social, but it can also then connect into your CRM and actually show, okay, I generated this many leads, but of those leads, what actually turned into sales? And as you guys probably are fully aware, working inside that space, inside the marketing space, there's a lot to be interpreted. And what this does is really boil it down in a visual way so that you can make decisions, better decisions on where to spend your money, what is working, how to target, so on and so forth. I encourage y'all to jump on it and jump on the site and schedule a demo. It's a great product. It's a great group out of Pittsburgh, PA. We're all a bunch of data nerds, so we love to bring on products or bring on other verticals and clients that would challenge us to help interpret their data really well. Just quickly about me, excuse the ambulance running by. I've been in the sales space for the last 15 plus years. I didn't originally try to get into that space. I didn't say, hey, I want to be a sales manager or director. I was actually in the agency world for a while, and then the recession happened back in 2008, and I was lucky enough to get a job managing a team. And for whatever reason, it just kind of clicked. Throughout the years, I've worked for Tegna, which is television broadcast sales, also their digital marketing product suite. I've worked for television production company where we were doing advertorial, to working in SaaS over the last 4 or 5 years. And it just seems like it's a natural progression in the technology. But through those years, the reason what you see up there on the screen, throughout those years, I was consistently writing down either thoughts or tactics or strategies or types of personnel or hiring practices. And I just would write it down and maybe try to start writing something, and then I would stop. I'm writing down, trying to stop. But during the COVID lockdown, we all had more time than what we knew could do. You can't watch Tiger King a second time. So I ended up just punching out this book, and this is what you got. It's available. It's cheap on Amazon if you want to take a look. So let's just quickly jump into, let's quickly talk about, when I say critical mass, what am I talking about? Critical mass is trying to, from the point that you actually start developing your product to when you're ready to go to market, that is that crucial time. It could be 6 months, a year, it could be 2 years, where you're trying to get as many sales and client base and revenue at one particular time as quickly as you can. And this could be because you're trying to hit some projected goal. I'm trying to hit my, my $5 million to $10 million so I can look profitable, so I can be purchased. It could be because you're launching a new product as an existing company, but you got a new product. There's a big initiative behind it. You need to put the sales to back it up. Or it could be relaunching companies. A number of times I've taken on roles where it's a pre-existing company. They have, for whatever reason, started to stall or gotten stale, and we needed to figure out a way to reinvigorate them. And then the last thing is you need to make sales to keep the lights on. And I know for a lot of you startups out there, this is obviously important. You need to get those sales quickly. So when I say critical mass, I'm talking about the actual effort to get to that number for survival, or as I say here, eating. Here's a couple of points. I'm not going to go into I'm sure a lot of our other speakers can speak deeper on inbound sales, or setting up their CRM or developing your budget. I wanted to take more of a kind of 50,000 foot view of things to consider when you are about to begin or setting up, or you are going into that critical mass sales stage. And we'll cover things like love blindness, focusing on crystal balls, sales as a grind for you who don't know, empowering your team, which is a misspelling, be flexible, be opening, and hiring and pay accordingly. So let's just start with love blindness. I have ran into this, and when I say this, when I mean love blindness is, I've come into roles where a CEO or the developer CEO or founder and the team are extremely in love with their product. And that could be great. And there's nothing wrong with loving your product, but it sometimes can hinder when you're trying to run a sales organization or build a sales organization, it can sometimes hinder your ability to price the product or roll the product out in an aggressive manner. And that means, they shun the idea of discounting. And I agree. A lot of times you have a CEO that's like, this product should be this price. And I agree with it 100%. It's a badass product. I wouldn't have taken the role if not. But the problem is that either it's an unproven product or overpriced can immediately stall or kill a sale. It's not always about price per se. It can also be, the thought process of those CEO and founder, CFOs, whatever it might be, accounting, that, they come out of the gates and say, I want only long-term contracts. I only want 1, 2, 3. Everybody should have this for the rest of their lives. Or it could be exorbitant onboarding fees. And again, these will slow or kill sales. The way, if you were building that team and you were starting this initiative and you were responsible for your SDRs and your sales reps, working on the pricing and creating incentives, I would try to sit down with the powers that be, that founder, that CEO, and just and try to let them see it from the perspective of the actual customer or prospect themselves. I think prior to this, the guy that was on before me, he was like, there's a lot of freemiums I'm not saying do a freemium per se, depending on your software, that might not make sense. But at least you have to eliminate any type of hurdles that might cause an objection getting to that signed contract. And that, so because you need to think of it like, I need to make it that they're removing risks on the client side or the prospect side, so that they will give it a try. Some CRMs, some other SaaS-based products, they're pretty involved, and it might be time heavy, and the cost of change for that, or to accept it, or to build it, or to start implementing it on that consumer or new client side, it can be rough. And so they might be like, I'm gonna skip it. So just try to think of it when you're putting that in front of your CEO that might be having that pushback, that, we have to make it easy to sell. We have to make it easy to adopt. And the thing is, I can feel like some CFO's head exploding right now, or a founder's head exploding right now. But the second part of that conversation with that CEO on, looking from that client's perspective is, just because we're going to lower the price today, or we're going to give a discount, or we're going to do away with onboarding fees, whatever it might be, doesn't mean that in the future that we can't do that. We can't bring it on. If you're an active company and you're a dynamic company and you're constantly developing and adding new, you can add applications and additional fees for the new products that you add on. It doesn't mean that, it's in the beginning, let's make it easy. And then, you can slowly start itemizing things as you go on. Let's see, focusing on crystal balls. All right, so there's been, I don't know if it was caused by COVID or not, people working from home, but there was, for some amount of time, a CRM was considered super hot, and every CEO and founder and operation had to have the CRM. And there was a lot of focus on KPIs, and it was just like, this has to, you have to have it. This is where we're going to have our projections. This is where we're going to know what's happening. This is where we're going to feel a heartbeat on the sales department. And for whatever reason, over the past couple of years, there's been a lot of pushback in the industry on what goes in there and what doesn't go in there. I'm not going to pile on. I mean, the thing is like, CRMs are great. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they are 100% awesome when it comes to keeping track of your leads, your contacts, all your correspondence, contracts, stuff like that. But what they are not, especially when you're moving hard and fast in that critical mass stage, they are not crystal balls. They're not going to give you a clear projection. Because if you are doing what you're doing, you're moving at the speed of light, scrambling, trying to come up with deals, reinventing the product, so on and so forth, you're not going to get a true idea of what's going to happen down the road. It might be able to show you individual efforts from an individual rep, but the likelihood is, if you're monitoring it and you're monitoring inside of it, they'll be good with it for about 2 weeks, and then they will start, basically, for lack of a better term, bullshitting you. What a CRM or crystal ball, it'll slow things down in that critical mass stage. When you are making people upload, storylines of what the conversation was and what the next steps are and where you think they're going to possibly fall and percentage, there's just no way you can know that. And it's silly for you to force your sales team into putting in that kind of stuff. If you have new team members on there, you have a better chance of just rolling dice if they know where a client's going to fall, because typically they don't have enough experience to make that call on what the closing percentage is. And it'll completely throw it. If you're looking at that dashboard and trying to get some kind of interpretation of where you stand, it's all just noise. When you are in that critical mass stage and you are pushing super, super hard, you as a sales director, vice president of sales, sales manager, whatever it might be, founder, you need to be focused on calls. You need to be conversations to a point, demos, contracts sent, and contracts signed. And that's it. And if you really wanted to strip it down, it would be calls, demos, contracts. Because contracts sent, I've had reps that just sit there and send out contracts to anybody that has a heartbeat. It's not a qualified KPI. I know that might be a little bit, people get all upset about that, but I mean, that's just the reality. When using a CRM, the best thing, especially in that critical mass stage, is to try to maintain a CRM, or what I call maybe a CRM hygiene. And what I mean by that is that you are trying to only put in contacts of leads that you've actually had some level of correspondence with via email, via phone, or via text. And the reason why is a lot of times I see inside these CRM more noise than there is actual useful information. And that's where you buy a list, you put the list in the system, and then you have your team kind of call through it, maybe, if they're any good and they're doing their job. But what it does is it just creates pages and pages of data that could be wrong, that could be non-essential, probably is non-essential. So when you are using a CRM, and if you have to use a CRM, try to cut away that confusion and bloat, and just have the information that is important to actually creating a deal. So when the rep has a conversation and it's a positive conversation and they seem somewhat warm to it, put them in. But all of the other data, lead, your contacts, everything like that, probably need to keep that on another Excel sheet. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true, and that's what works. Another one is, when we were talking about calls, call it COVID, call it what you want, modern day work environment. What I am seeing out there in the field, in the marketplace right now, is I can send out 100 emails a day and they're just go into a black hole. It really is coming down to phone calls. And also I've seen more and more where people are texting each other. That seems to be more and more comfortable. That might be an age thing, sorry. And if you can get in front of those and get in conferences and meet people face to face, that seems to be the best way to get that critical mass and get everything moving along at a fast pace. One thing, I'm not paid by these guys, but if you have ever, there's a company called Kixie, Kixie. This basically allows you to make numerous calls at one time. So it can make 4 calls at one time, and then whenever that one of those 4 picks up, then it connects it. What that allows you to do, if you are managing overhead and you only have a couple of reps, this program will allow you to do that number of do 4 times the number of dial outs than say, you know, what 4 people can do, it's doing what, you know, for 1. Probably should check those guys out. Good group of people out of San Fran. Let's see. Sales is a grind. If you have not been in sales, it is a emotional roller coaster. As you begin, if you have more experience and over time, that emotion kind of dulls a little bit because you've seen it, you've heard it, you felt it before, you've been through the highs and lows. For new reps, new SDRs, it can be rough. You know, you cheer for that new partnership, and when you actually get a sale, and then you also have to live with days where you make 100 calls and you hear no, or something even worse, a lot. So, you know, when you're in that critical mass stage, you need to kind of be the mother hen and need to know that on the upfront, that you need to do everything in your power to make sure that those sales reps have what they need at their disposal to make them as strong as they could possibly be going into market, making those calls, and they have what they need. One of those things is, you know, and we'll talk about something further down the line when it comes to empowerment, but one of those things is consistently redefining or rewriting your sales scripts. And I know some of you are like, oh, of course, why wouldn't you? But here's the thing is, like, you need to make sure whatever comes out of your sales rep's mouth or your mouth is authentic, it's engaging, and more importantly, easy to understand. And this is something I wrote about in the book. If you can't explain your product to your mother and her not understand unless she's being patronizing, then you are overcomplicating what you're pitching to your people. And more importantly, you know, it needs to be both motivating, not only to the listener at the other end, the prospect, but also for your reps and SDR. You know, it's important that they feel confident what's going on. And in the same sense as, like, I might write out a script that sounds whiz bang and wonderful, but it come out pretty wooden. And so I work with the team because they're making the sales reps, because they're making the calls. And I encourage them to, you know, well, not completely rewrite it, but write in portions of that script so it's in their own words, it's in their own phrases. You know, because again, if it sounds wooden coming out of their mouth, it's going to be heard wooden on the other end of the phone when you finally get somebody on the phone. And that basically, you know, kill the deal before it even gets out, before the phone's even hung up. On being available for trying to do everything in your power for your sales team, I really encourage, and I've seen this over and over again, where I have sales managers, or I've worked with sales managers who are not available, meaning those people are the ones in the CRM trying to create a storyline, trying to build a report. You know, in the critical mass stage, we don't have that much time. You shouldn't have that much time to build reports and, you know, feather your nest. You need to be available on every call. Your reps need that. The reps should be asking you to be available on every call. If they're not asking you to be available on every call, you know that there's an issue, either with the rep, either with you, either with the product, the market, or they're just struggling. But, you being available to be in those, especially in that critical mass stage, being able to jump on a call at any given moment and run shotgun with them to help them close deals, and more importantly, give them confidence in handling objections. That is, not only are you showing that I'm in it to win it with you, I'm invested in your success, but it also allows you to be involved with listening to how the customers are responding to the scripts or handling objections or the customer questions. And it allows you to then preemptively build out scripts or write out and do trainings on handling objections based off of certain products or services that you offer. And also, sometimes, again, when it comes to being able to explain what you do and what you sell to your mother is, again, it can, you being on the calls with the reps and hearing those questions from those clients allows you to kind of blow the smoke out of the room and try to eliminate any type of confusing language or pricing or terms that, again, will hinder that closing of the deal. Let's see. One of the things that I kind of learned early on when it was giving a little bit of the reins to your sales rep and empowering them, empowering your team to do deals, manage or work with some of the pricing or discounting. And that doesn't mean having a free for all or fire sell. What I'm saying is allowing your sales rep to have the flexibility and autonomy to build the deals out either through some kind of tiered discount, offering free trials, or even adding like minor product enhancements at no charge. When you give that levity to that rep, it gives them wiggle room and also creates the environment of a win-win scenario for that prospect that's getting closer and closer to the actual deal. One of the things that I did early on for a production company was we knew what our clients had spent the year before, and we wanted to increase them by 15 or 20% the following year. We had reevaluated, or I had reevaluated the value of some of the offerings that we had, and what we were able to do is basically build it out in a fashion that you could take that client's spend and show them what they were going to receive this year, or you could, the rep would then say, well, if you spend up to this amount, preferably that 15 or 20%, I can do these things for you in addition to what you got last year. Now, some of those additions were product enhancements or things that had some value, but not a ton of value, but in the client's mind was great. Something that they got something more than they got last year. Or, okay, I'm going to spend a little bit more, but in what they did end up getting more bang for their buck. But it was allowed the rep to create a deal specific to the needs of the client. And again, that empowers the rep. They feel they are involved. They brought this client to the table. They brought, and they are putting together the best possible deal they can think of, and creating the best win-win situation. And, when you give that autonomy and you give that ability to that sales rep, they are, they're going to be completely jacked that they have that ability. Let's see. How am I doing on time here? being flexible, being open. And this kind of goes back to my initial thing about love blindness, but and this kind of falls a little bit on the sales director, sales marketing, or sales director, sales managers landing on their lap is, you know, I can do all the research on what the market's going to look like, what the competitors look like. I can see, you know, I have a target audience who I believe is the one who are going to make it. Who are going to make the decision. I can, you know, get the pricing. I can build the, you know, the discounts and everything like that. But once I get into the market and the actual push inside that critical mass of making those sales, all hell breaks loose. All of my projections, all of my targets, my approach, even the marketing collateral can be completely wrong because I don't, and because I maybe assumed or just in my own blind, you know, with blinders on, this is the way I think it's gonna, this is the way it's gonna work. You have to be, the point being is those things, one or all of those things could go sideways on you. You need to have the ability to be open, listening to what the clients are saying, and pivot to that, and be flexible to say, all right, we're going to have guys, you know, tell your reps and tell your CEO, look, the way we had it, the way we thought about this is a little different than the way it's currently going. So, you know, you have to consistently reevaluate what the conditions are, how things are moving along, and make those changes. And this can be like, these can be, you know, this is the price that I want to sell it at, but for whatever reason, we've been hammering it for 3 months, and damn it, the damn thing is just not moving. You know, we might make a couple sales, but you have to go back and listen to the clients and listen and talk with your reps and look and say, it's either this is the product, we're pushing this one angle and it's not working. We're using these, you know, we're using these phrases and it's not connecting. We are targeting this audience and they're not willing, they're not wanting it. And I can say 100% that I've targeted specific business verticals and I would be like, this is perfect for this particular business vertical, only to find out that when you put that product in front of them, they do the demo, they openly say, I do not want this product simply because it calls me out. It calls out some of our initiatives. It might uncover something. Or, you know, some people say, I don't want that product because it'll eliminate my job. That happens too. But when you're looking at that, changing and pivoting and being flexible and being open, again, like we talked about, you know, long-term contracts. You know, certain industries are anemic to long-term contracts. So you might have to pump the brakes a little bit and reevaluate it and change the terms of what you're pushing out there to month to month or 3 month. It could be, you know, some people don't want to have pay for service, or, you know, it can vary. And when you're looking at, you know, in consideration, like your previous research before going into hitting the market full blast, is that you thought that there was only 4 competitors in the space, only to find out that there are much, much more. And they might be backed by bigger money, and they might have a monster team, or they might have this, the product that you were selling is a sub product of a larger product that they can just add on for a small charge. So these are all of these things that you have to stop, pivot, and adapt quickly to. One last thing, and is hire and pay accordingly. For all you HR people on the line, you might want to just mute this. maybe even CEOs. But if you have not worked in sales or sales management for at least 5 to 10 years, you have you shouldn't be hiring sales professionals. And primarily because unless they have been in that space, they don't know what to look for. And when it comes to getting that critical mass scenario, and you're trying to make as many sales as humanly possible, you want to make sure that you have everything already. You want to have the best possible people in your on your team for that big push. You know, a HR generalist might not know what it takes to be a salesperson, have that inner drive to make it happen. And if they are making those decisions, you're going to be left with some really good people, but you're not going to be left with sales killers. One other last thing, and I'm going to kind of taper off here, is, you know, I've ran into this before, especially with CEOs and a CFO. You know, when you're building that sales organization, they say, well, I can either get 2 SDRs for the price of this salesperson. And, you know, when it comes to which one you choose, I would suggest going with the more senior salesperson. And the reason why is when you're in that critical sales and critical mass situation, you want to make sure that you have somebody that is autonomous, that understands the systems, understands how the etiquette of sales and having a business conversation, and build. An SDR is going to need, or a younger rep is going to need, a lot more coddling, a lot more care, and that is going to, again, hamper your time on getting there. So that's really all I got. I'm getting pumped over here to wrap it up. Once again, here's a couple of companies that I've used in the past. You know, when you're in that critical state, you might not have a lot of money at your available to you. Kixie, Rocket Reach, which is building that list, and of course HubSpot. Those have been just kind of your go-to when it comes to systems in the early stages. They do allow lots of, and you can build on those, and they're easy to use, which is the most important thing. They're aesthetically, and the logic moving through each one of their screens is super easy. So once again, thanks again. I'm not on Twitter. Email me if you need me. It's here on the screen. But thanks again, guys. Thoughts?
Seth, thank you so much for that. You answered my next question. I was going to ask you where people can connect with you offline or online, but
LinkedIn.
That's funny. All right, cool. And then your email is right there. Yeah, we really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us, providing all of that insight. Sales is always an interesting topic to talk about, especially at early stage startups. So yeah, I really appreciate you being out here with us, spending an hour of your time. So, is there any last parting words you'd like to leave our audience with before we head to the next speaker?
No. Again, thanks a lot, guys. Feel free to reach out if you need anything, and it's a pleasure.